Ballot is not a food you simply eat. It's a food you confront. For many, the first encounter is not with flavor or aroma, but with sight. The moment the shell cracks open, the experience begins. What lies inside is not the smooth, blank canvas of a typical boiled egg, but something far more visceral. A partially developed duck embryo, complete with beak, feathers, and tiny bones. This is where the test begins. Before the first bite, before even the first smell, Ballot challenges the mind. It pushes against the modern boundaries of what food is supposed to look like, demanding a kind of courage that goes far beyond taste. And make no mistake, this visual barrier is significant. Even seasoned travelers and adventurous eaters have hesitated, forks paused midair, unsure of how to proceed. In cultures where food is heavily sanitized and visually uniform, Ballot can seem shocking, even grotesque. It forces a confrontation not only with the food itself, but with the ideas and values we carry about life, nature, and consumption. It's the kind of food that instantly reveals how deeply emotion, ethics, and aesthetics are tied to our appetite. Some may recoil, some may refuse. But for those who stay, who lean in instead of turning away, a deeper understanding and even appreciation begins to unfold. Nutritionally, Ballot offers real substance. It's an incredibly rich source of protein, calcium, iron, and other essential nutrients. The developing duck embryo is dense with amino acids and minerals that support muscle growth, bone strength, and overall health. In many communities, it's been relied upon not just as a delicacy, but as a potent form of nourishment, a kind of natural multivitamin encased in a shell. For people who do manual labor or live in areas where meat is not readily available, Ballot is efficient and accessible fuel. It's also believed in some cultures to be an aphrodisiac, a strength giver, and a symbol of vitality. This belief isn't just cultural. It's based on centuries of observation and reverence for a food that delivers far more than it asks for in preparation. Flavor-wise, Ballot is surprisingly mild. Once you get past the appearance, the taste is rich and savory, somewhere between a hard-boiled egg and tender poultry. The yolk is dense and flavorful, often with a slightly cheesy or liver-like richness, while the broth that surrounds the embryo inside the shell is warm and briny, a kind of natural soup that many people sip before digging into the rest. For some, the embryo itself is the highlight, delicate, slightly gamey, but soft enough to chew easily. For others, that part is best skipped, with attention focused on the yolk and liquid. Ballot gives you options, even within its challenge. But there are real emotional and psychological hurdles to overcome. Many people find the idea of eating something that had already begun to form life deeply unsettling. Ethical debates often emerge around Ballot, particularly when viewed through Western lenses that prioritize certain values around animal development and the sanctity of life. There's discomfort in the unknown, not just with what the food looks like, but what it represents. Is it too raw? Too real? Too far from the polished and processed norm we've come to expect? Yet this is also the power of Ballot. It reminds us that food is not always neat. It's not always pretty or packaged or predictable. Sometimes it's confronting. Sometimes it makes us pause. And in that pause is where something meaningful can happen. Ballot asks you to acknowledge where your food comes from, to see it in its natural form, and to choose, consciously, to accept or reject it. That kind of choice isn't given to us very often in modern eating. It's easy to eat mindlessly. It's much harder to look directly at what you're consuming and still say yes. There are warnings that should be taken seriously. Pregnant individuals and people with certain medical conditions should be cautious with any food that's high in cholesterol or potentially carries foodborne pathogens if not prepared or stored properly. Ballot must be fresh and properly cooked to be safe. As with any animal product, the risk of contamination exists, and it's essential that it be purchased from trusted sources. There's also an emotional weight that might not suit everyone. Eating Ballot is not a casual, everyday experience for the uninitiated. It's intense, and it may linger with you, not just physically but mentally. But for those who engage with it fully, who set aside judgment and step into the moment with openness. Balut can become more than a dish. It can be a moment of cultural exchange, of respect, of growth. It forces you to question what food really is, what it means to nourish, and what it means to be brave. It's not something you eat and forget. It's something you remember, whether you loved it or could only manage a bite. That in itself is valuable. Balut doesn't try to make things easy. It doesn't hide. It offers everything: nutrients, flavor, tradition, in a raw and unfiltered package. And it asks you to rise to meet it. Some foods speak quietly, gently inviting you in. Balut doesn't whisper. It stands its ground, bold and unwavering. And for those who listen, who meet it with respect and curiosity, it can open the door to a deeper appreciation of food as not just sustenance, but as something far more profound, a connection to history, to culture, and to the very real, sometimes uncomfortable truth of what it means to eat.